to. Oh yeah, there's also a fear in politics of changing something because that gives other people an opportunity to attack you. You might even do something good, but people will say that it's bad. So there's definitely a fear to make certain kinds of changes, and I think the system is it's sort of visible across the world that the educational systems are unsustainable, and eventually they will collapse and fall apart, or eventually intelligent people will just become not interested in them. They'll just walk away from the whole concept uh, of education. I mean, what was I doing the other day? I was watching some videos with my son, and we were watching some videos about science and music and art, and it was really fun and educational, and we talked about it, and we learned a lot. And I was thinking, what's the point in going to school again? I was like, what's the point? Why do the children have to go there again? I mean, it's just all we have to do is turn on YouTube and type in whatever subject we want to learn about, and we get a selection of videos that we can watch, from crash course history, which is far better than anything produced in any school anywhere in the world, to Veritasium science and physics based experiments. Yeah, the main aim of schools is to help people find their purpose. It is not in any way to educate. The idea that people get educated in school is funny to intelligent people, because I can tell you I never learned anything important in school. I was there for 15 to 20 years, and if you're going to tell me that the system has changed and is much better today, I'm going to laugh, right? Because that's ridiculous. Um, so, and the other fact is that school is run by the government for the purpose of promoting the government as being fantastic. I mean, that's a subtext that nobody wants to talk about. That in order for government to be sustainable, it must take the children from the families and remind the children on a daily basis that their families are so useless and the government is so brilliant that we all need the government. And don't forget to pay your taxes. And don't forget to remind your parents to help you with your homework, because school can't help you with the homework because school's useless. And why do we have homework anyway? Because surely we are supposed to learn in school, not outside of school. If school really worked, we wouldn't need to do anything outside of school. So the whole system falls apart very quickly when we leave everything in the hands of the school, if we are an intelligent society. Now, intelligent societies tend to have a more open approach to education. And you can see this around the world. There are 10 to 15 countries around the world where you don't actually have to send your children to school. You don't have to do it. But in the other, in 90% of the world, more than 90% of the world, you have to. But there are 10 to 15 countries where you don't have to send your children to school, and they have no problem with education. They have no problem with development. These are leading countries in science and technology and in art and development. Britain being one example, the United States being another example. I mean, the leading cultures of the world are cultures where you don't have to send your kids to school. Yeah, now, if you don't know what you want to do, then you need some kind of guidance, which is why I think, this is just my opinion, that schools should become more like libraries, and that they should be places where you can collect data and information. Now, if you look at the principle of libraries have existed for thousands of years. And there's nobody that said, oh, well, the library is useless. Libraries are useless. Everybody understands and values and appreciates libraries. But most people look at schools like, oh, God, do I have to go? The reason why we appreciate libraries is we go when we need them, right? It's like, you don't spend every day in hospital because you might get sick, right? You go to the hospital because when you need it, when you have a problem. And that's how libraries function, and that's how the free market and shops function. And that's how schools should function as well. They should function as a facility where people can go when they need something. You want advice, you want to know about different careers in different areas. You want to maybe join a sports club or something like that. You want direction in the sciences. Then schools can function like that. I think they should merge with libraries, and they should have people who are in charge of the departments who maybe know a bit more than other people about the specific topic or subject. And it shouldn't be an institution with a factory style format where all the desks and chairs are in perfect rows and everything is designed like the manufacturing industry wanted 150 years ago. We are, in general, as societies of the West, more intelligent now. We don't need that kind of system in place. And you can see that cultures where school is a more flexible system are usually cultures where things can develop more quickly. There's more flexibility. They're also usually cultures where people are more social. I work with some groups of younger students or teenagers. There is pressure put on them by school, but they understand that school is not everything, and they're able to have lives outside of school, which is really important. Because the world is not inside a school. The world is out there somewhere, so it's necessary to go out and connect with people out there. Now, you can also meet up with people and connect with people through schools, which is fine if that's your choice. The real socialization involves a person making a choice about who they socialize with. It's not ever forced, because there's this idea that if you force people to be together, they learn to be social. That doesn't work. If you force people to be together, they just learn to be angry with each other. And they learn to tolerate other people's bad behavior, which is really, again, not very useful, because you want to connect with people who can help you, people that you like being with, and you don't want to be monitoring your own behavior all the time because you might offend somebody. I mean, students spend 20 years monitoring their own behavior so they don't get into trouble. And that has developmental problems where students are scared to speak or say what they think or have their own opinions because they're not valued in that way. And for society to be better, we need people with new ideas. And that's not going to happen if we fix every answer to every question, which is how a lot of testing systems in schools are designed. There's a question and there's a right answer and a wrong answer. If you get it right, you move forward, and if you get it wrong, you move backwards. And if you don't get your qualification, you're in trouble. And we don't treat adults that way. So what makes it okay to treat children that way? And children need more supports than adults, right? So we give them. We perhaps give them more structure but less support, and that's one of the many issues that has to be dealt with in education. So I think that we have a long way to go with that, because a lot of people don't understand that schools aren't what they are marketed to be. And I'm not saying they can't do good things. They can do very good things. If you are a young person who doesn't get much support from their family, then you are going to look to the school and the school system for support. And that will help you. That will help you get your education. That'll help you learn. That'll help you get to university. That'll help you maybe get to another country, have a new experience, meet other people, and hopefully end up with some kind of good quality job or realize some kind of better purpose in life. The negative side to that is that you never come back. And your family never see you again. But that's your family's fault for not helping you at the beginning. If your family don't help you at the beginning, then you're not going to be there for them at the end. And some parents think they're helping their children by giving their children everything they need. Oh, big mistake. Because the more that you do for your children, the less they do for themselves. And this act of doing something for yourself is how you learn. It's the making a decision about what is important and being able to judge the success or failure of your own decisions. And if you succeed, move forward, and if you fail, move backwards, basically. And it's necessary to fail in order to know what not to do and where not to go. And if you fail and someone supports you, that's a disability. That's disenabling a person, because that's not letting a person suffer, right? And sometimes in life people need to suffer in order to have progress. And the classic stupid example is the child who burns themselves because they touch something hot. Yeah. And so they touch something hot and they learn, oh, okay, I burned myself. That's not good. And every child has that experience, right? Even parents who are overprotective, like they still you can't stop it. And it's not good in general to stop the children from experiencing a certain level of hurt or pain, because they need to experience the pain to learn to manage the pain. I'm not saying you should hurt children. Of course, you shouldn't hurt children, but pain is unavoidable in life, and suffering is a necessary part of life. Like everyone has the situation of someone in their family or a friend dying. It's right. I mean, it's painful. It's a really negative experience, but we have to learn how to go through it properly. The experience of pain and suffering is very much misunderstood in the modern world, because every time we want to grow, we must go through a difficult process. And you see it in young kids. When young kids grow up, their body's growing, right? Physically. And it's actually quite painful for them, right? Their legs hurt, their back hurts, their arms hurt, their knees hurt, and they're constantly having to readjust to being bigger, right? I mean, it's not like, it's like, we don't have to do that as adults. We know how tall we are and how fast we can move and how far we can reach. But for children, that's constantly changing all the time. It's also interesting to note, in fact, it's very interesting to note that we live in the modern world as gods. The technology that we use, the way that we communicate, how we travel, our daily experiences, this is something that the average person could not even dream of 100 years ago. Pre-1900, very few electric systems, no mobile technology, no cars, no planes. Technology meant big things, not little things. And the way that we live is very much the way that people imagine gods would live, experiencing quite high levels of comfort, being able to live through winter, which is in some places minus 15, maybe more degrees here in this part of the world, and still live comfortably. I mean, this is unbelievable. You know, the fact that we are surrounded by objects which make our daily life a little bit better, and we have access to information to change our lives if we want it, if we need it. There is a certain amount of information, I think, which is hidden away from people, but we don't even need to worry about that, because we can't even handle what we have. How can we handle any more, right? How can we live with more technology when we can't even live with the technology that we've got? It's insanely crazy, and so who knows what's coming to make things even better for people in the future. Hopefully a lot of things that we can't even imagine. I mean, the 20th century was a century of development, invention, creativity, and wonder like the world had never seen before, and we're living, you know, at the pinnacle part, the top of the mountain of it. We're standing on the shoulders of giants, and you know, just to relate things to connect with your work, right? The photocopy machine was invented in the 1930s, I believe, and the man who invented the photocopy machine, I can't remember his name right now, but I was reading about it earlier this month. The man who invented the photocopy machine spent, and it was one man. It was one man. It wasn't a company. It wasn't a big industrial investment. It wasn't a government. It was just one man in his home invented it, because he understood a little bit about light and different chemicals and how light attracts certain chemicals, and so he experimented with it, and he built a system himself. He then spent 10 years going door to door, company to company, trying to sell the photocopy machine to companies. You know, no company wanted it for 10 years. Nobody wanted it for 10 years. Can you even believe that? An amazing piece of technology that we can't live without, like the photocopier. Nobody wanted it for 10. He spent 10 years. Now, if after 9.5 years he had stopped knocking on doors, we wouldn't even have that today, right? So it's all down to one person, and a journey of, 4 or 5 years of invention, and then another 10 years of knocking on doors to eventually find one company to produce, manufacture, and sell the machine. That's crazy. Kodak, right? In the late 1960s, it might have been, late 1960s. I'm pretty sure it was the 60s. Kodak invented the digital camera. Late 1960s, right? And no, it was early 1960s. It was earlier. It's earlier than we thought it was, right? Kodak had a group of technicians, and they wanted them to work with digital chips and technology and images and see what they could produce. And they very quickly managed to create a digital camera. And then, you know what Kodak did? For 10 to 15 years, they sat on the technology and didn't develop it, because it was a threat to their system of film. It was a threat to their system of film, and they were the first. They were the first. Kodak were the first people to develop digital images, right? And how a person could create and store their own digital images. The digital camera was invented by Kodak. And they sat on the technology for 15 years and didn't do anything with it. And what happened was other companies caught up with them, developed it, and destroyed Kodak. But they had it. So who knows what person, where, somewhere, is developing right now that is going to revolutionize things in the next 50 to 60 years. We don't know exactly where we're going, but if it's the same as the past, it's going to be pretty amazing. Yeah, one man. Sorry to interrupt. One man, Konrad Zuse, built the first computer, the Z1, in Germany in the late 1930s. One man in his living room. In fact, he didn't even have a place to live. He was living in his parents' flat, and he built the first computer by himself, a massive binary system. And that's why we have computers, because he built the first one, and the second one, and the third one, and the fourth one. You never know where it's going to end. I mean, there's another story about Albert Einstein that in the 1920s he developed a cooler for fridges because the system that they were using had, I think, some kind of toxic chemical in it, ammonia or something, and it was killing people. And so he developed a new magnetic-based cooling system for fridges, and he designed and developed and built prototypes, but nobody wanted them. And so no one used his technology for 20 years until they started to develop nuclear reactors. And when they started to work with nuclear technology, they needed a cooling system for the nuclear technology. And they went back to Einstein's design for the fridges. It was originally a design for homes, for people in their homes, for fridges. Yeah, and they used that in nuclear systems. So it's not clear where things will end. Right, and in general, I mean, obviously we can see that some roads are bad, right? We don't need to go down certain roads, right? But in terms of how we use technology and what we use it for, we very often find a completely different purpose for something than its original intention.